All right, so I wanted to share a new update on the salad dressing venture that we are now participating in. So, one of the very first things that the food scientist shared with us is that we need to test the recipe as it increases in volume to make sure that the taste does not change. So, she had suggested first taking the actual recipe that we make and then doubling it and see if the taste changes, and if it doesn't, then go for 10 timesing the recipe. Ironically, the average salad dressing bottle that this is not like a survey that I took, but just going to the grocery store and looking at salad dressing bottles. The average salad dressing bottle that I have found on my little research is 16 ounces. So a lot of the salad dressing bottles that you buy at the store are about 16 ounces in size. Ironically, the recipe that my wife would make just at home for years and years and years happened to be 15 ounces. So she had to add a little bit of everything extra to make it 16 ounces because we thought that if the average size of salad dressing bottle is 16 ounces, then that's the size that we're going to shoot for as well when we bottle our salad dressing and sell it in stores or wherever we're going to sell it. So we increased the size to make sure that at 16 ounces, it still tasted the same and it still tasted good, which it did. So we were able to hammer out a recipe, nail down the recipe that will make our recipe for 16 ounces, which of course will be one bottle of salad dressing. So then we doubled it. We took the recipe and doubled it and made 32 ounces to see if it still tasted the same. And what the food scientist shared with us is she said, make your standard recipe that you normally would make and set it aside, then go double it over here. And then once you've doubled it, you have the first one to do a taste comparison to make sure they still taste the same. So that's what we did. So then yesterday, we decided to now 10 times the recipe. We've doubled it. We doubled it a few weeks ago. It's probably 2 weeks ago. We did it about 2 weeks ago. And now yesterday, we 10 times the recipe. And so we still had the first one that we could compare the flavor to, at which point, luckily for us, it still tasted the same. So we were super excited because now we know we can just simply mathematically times the recipe we have by 10 and create 10 bottles of salad dressing, which shouldn't be that big of a project. The reason why we're doing this is because as you increase the volume of your recipe, the recipe will most likely start to change in flavor. And then you're going to have to tweak certain things to make sure that you maintain the same flavor that you originally created. And the reason this is important is because at some point we're probably going to get to a point where we're going to manufacture or produce, probably is the better word, produce this salad dressing in bulks of, the hope is bottles of thousands. Right now, we just doubled the recipe, and then we 10 times the recipe. But at some point, however, and this is yet to be known, I still don't know this part, but when we get to a point where we're going to then need to produce 100 bottles at a time, not 10 bottles at a time, but 100 bottles at a time, or then 1,000 bottles at a time, how do we tweak, if needed, the recipe as we increase in size? So this is very, very important. So as you increase in size, you have to make sure that your recipe doesn't change. At least the flavor, doesn't change in your product. So wanted to share that update that we've gotten now up to 10 times, which is actually the amount that the food scientist suggested that we first try. She says, figure out how you can get it to 10 times. We timed it. It only took 30 minutes to make, which ended up being 160 ounces, which is just a little bit less than a gallon. So we were able to put it all into like a gallon of water, not a gallon of milk carton, but this, those gallons that you get of milk and of water. We used one that water was in, and we put it all in there, and it's a little bit less than a gallon. And so now we literally produce 10 bottles of salad dressing in about 30 minutes. Of course, we haven't put them in the bottles yet, but we now know about the time that would take for us to do this. If we were to start, let's say, according to the food scientist, she said a great way to test food products that a lot of companies do in the beginning are selling at a smaller scale, like at farmer's market or online or at a restaurant or at a bakery, where they can just sell it on the side on the shelf to see basically if your product even sells, right? And so you don't want to go out and make 1,000 bottles right from the get-go and then find out nobody likes your product. And now you got 1,000 bottles sitting in your garage of whatever it may be, in our case, salad dressing. So we've now figured out how to produce 10 bottles. Now we've got to actually go out and buy these bottles. And then she shared with us the lids that we're going to want to entertain purchasing to accompany these bottles, which is probably, if I'm not mistaken, our next step. So now we're going to start researching bottles. We've actually already started, but now honing in and really refining the actual bottle and lid that we want to use. She shared with us that for our particular salad dressing, because it has a lot of ingredients in there, it's one of these that you have to shake up, that we might want to consider a lid very similar to what olive oil or maybe Tabasco sauce have at the top of their bottles. Kind of strains the ingredient. It kind of keeps the ingredients in the bottle as the fluid comes out. So we're going to figure that out. And then, of course, we're going to start to test the market and see if we want to start upping our amount, our volume, and then maybe producing, from 10 bottles to 50 bottles to 100 bottles and then continue to grow from there. So kind of exciting news that we were able to produce 10 bottles without the flavor changing. I was kind of hopeful that, it wouldn't change just yet. I'm more on the understanding that it's probably going to start to change once we up it to like 100 or, even more than that. But it's very possible that could have changed from 1 to 10. And the recipe, speaking specific to the recipe, the flavor could have changed, upping the recipe from 1 to 10. Thankfully it didn't, so it kept making the 10, the 160 ounces very simple. And so we're excited now to take it to the next phase, which is, of course, now purchasing these bottles and these lids. And then once we do that, we reconnect with the food scientist, who then breaks down the ingredients so that we can create the label, the sticker, the label that you find on all food products that share the ingredients in there, the calorie intake, and all of that. After we've refined that, then we're going to get together with the food scientist and make that sticker. So actually, I take that back. She did share with me that we might want to hold off on the sticker until we increase the volume size even bigger, because if we have to refine it and change the recipe, we don't want to do that sticker twice. So I'm going to have to get back to you on what our next step is after bottling these first 10 bottles. On that note, keeping you posted, keeping you updated in case you too have a food product or an invention or some type of business venture that you're looking to start. You can, again, follow me through this journey on an industry that I know nothing about, the food industry, and watch me make all the mistakes so that you don't have to make them. All right? Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. If you like this video, hey, please give it a thumbs up. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to put them in the comment section below. I can answer the questions to the best of my ability, but if I don't know the answer because it's basically something I haven't experienced before, I'll let you know. All right? Thank you.